Students, this is Dr. Muayyad Omran Chiad. I'm going to teach you phonetics. We're going to follow the book Better English Pronunciation by J.D. Akana. What is meant by speech organs? Speech organs are the organs that produce speech sounds needed for language. They include the lips, the teeth, the tongue, alveolar, hard palate, velum or soft palate, uvula, and glottis. Speech organs can be divided into two groups or articulators. They are passive articulators and active articulators. The passive articulators can be defined as not movable organs of speech. During the articulation of a sound, these organs are not movable. They include all the parts of the roof of the mouth, which are the teeth, alveolar ridge, hard palate, soft palate. The soft palate is movable and it determines whether the sound is oral or nasal, but it is called passive because it is not moved toward other more organs of speech, but the active organs of speech move towards it. So it is called the passive organ. The active articulators are the organs that move towards the passive organs of speech during the articulation of a sound. They include the lower lip and the tongue. Tongue and all its parts are called active articulators, like tip, blade, front, and back of the tongue. The last part of the active articulators is called the lower jaw. Now, what is the basic mechanism of speech sounds? All sounds are made with some movements of air. Without producing air, there will not be sounds. And the basic source of power is the lungs. The air goes from the lungs to the windpipe, or called trachea, and then to the larynx and out of the body through the vocal tract, or either through the mouth, that is the oral cavity, or through the nose, that is the nasal cavity. In this diagram you can see the sounds are produced through the air which comes from the lungs, then the larynx, in which there are vocal cords, then the pharynx, then they go to the either to the mouth cavity, oral cavity, or through the nasal cavity or the nose. Then the speech organs fall into three groups. Number one, respiratory system, that is the lungs, generate a stream, and the lungs are the source of influx. Without air, as we mentioned before, speech sound cannot be produced. Number two, phonatory system, in which speech sound are modified, and this phonatory system is centered in the larynx, and vocal cords play the major role in the modification of the speech sounds. Then the third part, which is the articulatory system, which includes the vocal tract. The vocal tract modifies the air stream in many movements, many situations, and play a major role in the production of speech sound. The lungs, of course, it is the source of air. It is the source of, the lungs are the source of the air, and they, in most human sounds, play major role. And of course, without the lungs, we cannot produce sounds. And most of our sounds are produced by aggressive pulmonic stream. That is, what does it mean? It means that the lungs push the air outwards. During this speech, the lungs take in air rapidly and let it go slowly by means of exhale, which is the opposite of inhale. Lungs, uh, most human beings' sounds are produced by this mechanism, that is the air aggressive pulmonic stream. Of course, we have other mechanisms, but we are not going to talk about them in this lecture. We are going to talk them later. Then the larynx. The larynx is found at the very top of the trachea. It contains two vocal cords, one on the left and one to the right. In this diagram, you can see that the larynx is above the trachea and includes the vocal folds, which has different movements, and they take different shapes. The vocal folds or the vocal cords are defined as two bands of elastic muscular tissue. They are located side by side in the voice box on the larynx, just above the windpipe trachea. If the back end of the vocal folds are held apart, a triangular space opens up between them. This is called the glottis. Look at this picture. You can see the vocal folds, and this is the place in the larynx, or called the vocal box. We have different movements of the vocal folds or vocal cords by means of adjustment of the glottis. There are crucial speech sounds produced. We have three positions. Of course, we have more than three, but we're going to talk about three positions of the vocal folds. One is the open glottis, the second is narrow glottis, then lastly you have the third one, the closed glottis. In this picture you can see there is what is called narrow, the open glottis, and then the narrow glottis, and lastly the closed one. Now let us come to the open glottis, in which the folds are apart or wide. To look at this picture, we can see that there's an opening. This is the place of normal breathing, normal place for vocal folds to be apart in the process of breathing. Number two, when we produce voiceless sounds, the voiceless speech sounds are produced in this state in which the vocal folds are open. For example, when we produce the sound sh, s, you can see, just put your finger on the larynx and produce these sounds, the voiceless sounds. You can sense that there is no vibration of the vocal folds. Now we come to the second state of the vocal folds, in which they are gently together, they are held gently together, and the air from the lungs forces its way through them, causing the folds to vibrate. And this is the state of voiced sounds. The voice sounds are produced in this way. For example, let us try z, the voiced sounds are produced in this state. Just to try to put your finger on the larynx and produce these sounds, the voiced sounds. You can guess, you can identify and sense that there's no opening, wide opening. There's what is called narrow opening, and there's a vibration in the vocal folds. Now we come to the last state, which is the closed glottis, in which the vocal folds are firmly pressed together and the air stream is stopped completely. We have glottal stop. You can pronounce the letter T in American English in the words like button. So normally you have the glottal stop sound. Just try, put your finger on the larynx and produce this sound. You can see it is closed, or the vocal folds are closed. Now we talk about the vocal tract. The air passage goes up the larynx, and the air passages above the larynx are called vocal tract. The shape of the vocal tract is very important in the production of speech sounds. The vocal tract is made of either number one, oral cavity, the mouth and the pharynx. Number two, the nasal cavity. The part of the vocal tract that are used to form sounds are called articulators. We have upper and lower surface articulators. See this diagram, you can notice the vocal tract. You can see that we have nasal cavity and we have oral cavity as the mouth cavity, and this is all the vocal tract. Different sounds are produced like bilabial, labiodental, dental, antedental, alveolar, postalveolar, palatal, velar, uvular, and pharyngeal sounds. Now we talked about the lips, and they can take different positions. The lips can be rounded, like for example when you produce oo sound, like in the word to or oo or you, and in unrounded, that is spread in the production of e sound in the word see or eat. Also we have the position of a neutral sound like ah in the bus or up. These are the different positions of the lips. Now the mouth, we have the roof of the mouth. In the roof of the mouth we have different places. These places are the alveolar ridge. The alveolar ridge is behind the upper teeth. After the alveolar ridge we have the hard palate. It is a bony structure. Then the soft palate or velum at the back of the mouth. It is a muscular flap that can be raised to shut off the nasal cavity. It is called the velic closure. Then after that we have uvula, and at the end we have the pharynx or sound production in Arabic. We have some sounds in Arabic are produced in this place, in the pharynx. Now we come to the tongue. The tongue is most important organ of speech. It is the usually movable organ. It is the usually movable organ in the floor of the mouth in humans. Dental sounds in English are, for example, th, are produced in the mouth. If a sound is produced while the tongue is between the upper lip and the lower teeth, as we mentioned, we have th, we have th. Five areas we have in the tongue: the tip of the tongue at the very front, blade of the tongue below the alveolar ridge, front of the tongue below the hard palate, and we have a back below the soft palate, and the root of the tongue towards the pharynx. Nasal cavity also is important in the production of nasal speech sounds. The nasal cavity is above the roof of the mouth. Not possible to perform an articulation since they are not movable parts. Sound produced with the lower velum. Nasals in English are n, ing, m, in words such as nose, bring, and mouth. Mouth. Mm, mm, ing. We come now to the sounds which are voiced and voiceless sounds. Voiced sounds is the term is ascribed to voice sounds. The vocal cords vibrate, as we mentioned. Non-voiceless sounds are produced where there is no vibration in the vocal folds. Voicing is the difference between pairs of sounds such as s and z. So this phenomenon distinguishes between different sounds by means of voicing. We have different here sounds and voiced and voiceless. I can notice in the picture. Now we come to the end of our lecture. Thank you very much for your listening. Goodbye.